So welcome back to another tutorial. Now I've been dying to go yoo-hoo through the middle of my design for today. Now you might have guessed this is a floral hoop that we quite often do our hula hoops with to keep us nice and fit, especially after we've been overindulging during Christmas. Today's design is inspired by the forthcoming Chinese or Lunar New Year, where we'll be celebrating the year of the dragon. Now I've created this circular design. If I just step back a minute for you to see the full shape. This is a circular hoop and I've used a drill just to screw it here into the base plate. If I move the floral foam out of the way, I've left the bottom part of the hoop clear just so that you can see how I've attached it to the base. This is just an ordinary old piece of ply that I found in the shed, and I've used two ordinary wood screws just to drill through the plastic hoop to attach it to the base. Nothing too complicated. You can buy frames like this ready done, but this is a fairly cheap way of creating it, and you can make it as big or as small as you want. You could use an embroidery hoop there instead and make a miniature version. And the main reason I picked the circle, and I think I've possibly done it for New Year before, and again I can link the two videos that I've done in the past that relate to Chinese and Lunar New Year. The reason I chose a circle for this is because I always think it represents a full moon, so I really like that round shape. And I'm going to look at doing a crescent shaped design that will come down on the opposite side of my dragons. Now, if I was doing this for anything other than a YouTube video, I probably would spray paint the base or cover it in some matching fabric. But I wanted you to be able to see the sort of bare bones of the design so that you can understand how you can create it for yourself at home. Now these hoop designs are really popular for wedding table centres. There is plenty of option for you to be able to view your guests across the centre of the table. So if you are challenged with creating something like this for a wedding table centre, then this is a really good option for you. And I've covered the plastic hoop with a really lightweight ribbon. It's actually fabric on a roll, but you could use ribbon, you could use fabric, you could use hessian or burlap. And I've tried to give me a bit of a connection with these fabulous dragons that I found on Amazon. They're obviously flat packed and it contains the head of the dragon, the base of the dragon, and this sort of concertina effect paper that expands out into that gorgeous dragon. And I've used 3 on this just to make it so that it is fairly equally balanced with the flower choice that I'm going to put on this side. Now today I've chosen to use some of the aggro wool. Last time you saw me use this, I think it might have been last week for Burns Night, and I covered it in a plastic wrap. This time I'm going to leave it open so that you can see how hard it is to work with or the problems that are encountered when you're working with it. And you can also see the amount of water that comes out of the fibre floral. This is a product by Oasis, and on the bottom tray, or this bottom piece of wood here, slightly off to one side because I'm going to be able to curve my crescent shape on this side, and I'm almost looking to do something like a half moon. So it counterbalances the visual weight there of my dragons on the opposite side. Now there are plenty of accessories that you can buy to help symbolise and represent Chinese or Lunar New Year. You can buy lanterns, you can buy little gold coins, red envelopes, and you can be as creative as you want to be. I know I haven't done anything that's got this very vibrant colour combination before, so I was really quite looking forward to using these. Now this week I've got supermarket flowers. It is still quite early in the month for me. It's January and we don't do a huge amount of large jobs here in the studio during January. So I'm relying on supermarket flowers to keep me going. And what I've looked for is something that's going to match the colours. Look at those. Now these are spray roses. These were in a mixed bunch from my local Tesco, and they came with this lovely orange rose. So 2 quite vibrant and clashing colours. In a separate bunch, you might again have seen these, or they might be coming very soon. I've got a dyed orange chrysanthemum. Again, I felt the colours were quite nice. I'm undecided on this one. I might use yellow instead. Might use both, might use one. I haven't quite decided. And to pick up on the darker tones, I've gone with stock, one of my favourites. I love using stock, and that's going to help give me that linear effect on the end of my design. And I've also got some greenery. I've got pine. Pine is often seen for Chinese New Year because it's thought to represent virtue and long life. So we probably saw this at Christmas, but I've got some more to be used. A beautiful curved shaped pine, which is really going to suit this type of arrangement. Now, if you haven't seen the Fibre Flora before, or Agro Wool, which is very similar, it's this very natural, earthy toned, quite fibrous foam. There are a few videos on the channel that you can watch where I use the Fibre Flora. So it's not quite as strong and as robust as the ordinary green foam that we're using, and it is compostable, so it does break down if you want to use it in the garden and you want to get rid of it quite naturally. So let's get started. Enough chatting. I'm just going to cut my pine, cut the elastic band there off my pine. Now, one of the benefits of this pine is that it does already have quite a natural curve, and that really helps give you a bit of an oriental sort of feel to your arrangement. And I'm going to start, I'm just coming in here on the side of the foam to start creating my outline shape. Now, one thing I need to be mindful of when I am making this design, I am so tempted to talk to you through the middle of this hoop. One thing that I need to be really mindful of, where's the best place to talk to you from, is that the dragons are made of paper, so I need to be really careful that I don't touch any of the wet foliage or the wet flowers against that paper, otherwise it's going to damage. Now, straight away you can possibly see I have a bit of resistance here coming in from the side, and that really is one of the problems that you get with this foam, is that it's quite hard to get any material in from the side. It's fine adding it in from the top, but it's very hard to get it in from the side. But that's where I'm going to use one of my kebab sticks. I can insert that greenery into the hole, but you can see how difficult it is to get your greenery in from the side, which is one of the reasons I'm not a great lover of using this product. So we're going to keep strengthening that outline. I'm going to keep for a minute using the pine. I will probably end up with some of this wooden base quite visible because I haven't made any attempt to completely cover it. But you know, you're going to get the full warts and all experience of using the Fibre Flora. Now, hopefully you can see, let's just get that in the right angle. There's a huge amount of water already coming out of the base of this foam. It is a foam that soaks really, really quickly. It's very easy to prepare, and the material is going quite well into the back and into the front. It's just the sides I'm having a bit of a problem with. But we'll persevere and we'll keep working with it. Now, if you've watched the previous video, which I think was for Burns Night, I used the same type of Fibre Flora foam, but I only arranged into the top, and that works really well. And I've used about 2/3 of a block here. I haven't used a full length. Now I've got a fairly good curved shape, which almost echoes what we see on the opposite side with the dragons. I'm going to start with the darker of the coloured stock. Now, stock foliage doesn't last particularly well. It has quite a strong perfume, or it's not really a perfume. It's a bit of an unpleasant odour. I'm going to remove quite a lot of the foliage, or even all of the foliage when I'm working, because I don't want to cause any future problems with the smell of that stock. And what I'm doing with these is using them to create the sort of tip, the end of my design. We finish here at a point, and as we come down to the focal area here at the front, we can use bigger, more open blooms like the roses. And then I'm going to bring the final of the darker colour over onto the shorter side. So what I'm doing here is making almost like a half moon or a semi-crescent. Now, I am wondering if, because this is the side that I cut to make that block smaller, have I ruined the integrity slightly by slicing through there with a knife? Because it is quite difficult to get the flowers in on that side there. But we'll persevere and we'll keep going. So now I'm going to move to the lighter, more cerise coloured stock, and I'm going to do the same sort of method. A bit shorter, I think, with that one. Bring it right to the end. It's a lovely colour link with that paper that's representing my dragon. And then I'm going to bring this more cerise colour onto the opposite side as well. So we're trying to fairly evenly distribute the colour from left to right. And I do laugh when I throw everything. I'm not throwing it on the floor, I do have a bin just underneath. Now when I insert it into what is my left side, it goes into the foam much better than it does on the side that I cut. So maybe that's something you need to consider if you are using the fibre flora, to maybe use it as a full block and not cut it down and weaken the structure and the integrity of the foam itself. But I'm hoping you can see a really lovely crescent shape there starting to take place. I don't think I'm going to use the lighter colour yet. I might change my mind at the end. But what I'm going to go with next is that dark, vibrant sort of cerise pink. Sometimes I cut the heads down to make them go that little bit further, but I think these are quite a nice size. And now I'm going to start bringing the shape and this colour from the taller left side through to the shorter side. Now I am going to cut this one down because this is a really large head. For a supermarket grade spray rose that really has an abundant selection of heads. I'm really quite pleased with that. So let's now get on that side that's quite difficult to work with. And now I can start bringing that colour through all the way from one side to the next. With this one here, I've taken off the bulk weight. That's given me a much smaller head to work with. Just going to trim off some of the damaged rose leaves, and that is going to be able to come right up the back here to really extend that colour over on the one side. Looking gorgeous. I'm loving this colour combination. It really is quite fabulous. And then I think the obvious gap now for my final cerise colour rose, this really hot pink, is going to be in the centre. Remembering to keep it quite low because I don't want to lose that crescent shape that I'm trying to create, and I don't want to over sort of fill that centre part because I'm going to lose that rounded or that semicircle shape that I'm trying to get. So nice and low down, making sure that what I have on the left side of the arrangement is on the right. And this side is really hard to get flowers in. So hard, I've just snapped it. So cut that a bit smaller, a bit shorter, and I'll come in from the front instead. It's going to be nothing left of it in a minute if I keep cutting it down. Right, so fairly even distribution there of that really bright, vibrant pink. The next colour I'm going to work with is going to be my orange rose. Now I've had the roses in the studio with me for probably 3 or 4 days, so they have had a chance to open slightly, and what I really loved about them was it almost represented this orangey yellow colour at the back here perfectly, because as it opens it's got a much lighter, more yellow colour tone. I'm going to use these to copy that shape, bringing the colour again from one side to the other. And use a nice tall one just to go up at the back. Now I'm obviously using a mixture of flowers here that I've picked up from my local supermarket, but you could quite easily do this with just a bunch of roses of the same sort of colour. It doesn't necessarily have to be the exact same flower choice that I have. And if you've got lanterns, you could hang them really effectively on the one side of the design, just like I've done with the dragons. You could really interpret any season or festival. It could be for a birthday where you included maybe the numbers 18 for somebody's 18th birthday. It would be great for lots of different interpretive designs where you're trying to represent a theme or a particular occasion. Now you'll just notice that the water is just about starting to leak out of my plastic dish. I've got a towel ready to hand just in case it gets out of hand. And that was one of the reasons why in the previous tutorial I wrapped it with that plastic cling film beforehand, and then I know then that I'm guaranteed there isn't going to be a lot of water leakage. And of course what I've got to remember is that I really don't want to damage those paper dragons that I've got there on the one side. So I haven't quite got a link yet between the rose colour. There is a bit of a gap here in the middle, and I'm looking really just to bring that lovely colour from one side to the other. Now when I'm selecting flowers, I'm not naturally drawn to clashing vibrant colours like this. I do tend to normally pick flowers that are more of a pastel shade. So when I saw this colour combination and I knew how well it was going to match that dragon, I was really quite pleased. And I think, you know, as we head into the new year, we head towards spring, this is a really lovely colour combination to be working with. Right, there, that's my final rose. Now what I need to decide is, am I going to use the orange or am I going to go with the yellow? So, orange or yellow. It's a shame it's not a live video because we could have had a live vote. But I'm thinking I'm naturally more drawn to the yellow because there is more of the yellow in those dragons. So we're going to have a little think about it. And after a lot of deliberation, it's a really big decision and I'm still not 100% sure whether I agree with my final choice, but I think I'm going to go with the orange. So if you agreed, put it in the description box below that you also chose the orange. So we'll start with the orange and we'll see how we get along with that, and then I might add in just a slight bit of the yellow. The main reason I didn't choose the yellow was because I think it's a bit bright, it's a bit too vibrant alongside the other colours. Maybe if it had been a bit of a softer yellow, I might have gone for that one instead. But I'm going to go with my choice. I'm going to work with this orange. And what is nice about this orange is it's a little bit paler in the centre. And it's this orange colour because it's been stirred in some dye that is taken up through the stem and colours the head. And I'm thinking that the centre bit is a bit paler, so it does pick up on some of those paler sort of creamy yellow tones that are in the dragons that are on the side. Right, so let's just keep going, adding in, following the shape of the flowers that I've already placed in. Just turn it all the way around because I've realised that you might have only seen the side view while I was working. What I'm going to be doing next is cutting my chrysanthemums down to quite short pieces to tuck in between the flowers to help cover the floral foam and to give me some recession, which helps us create depth within the arrangement. I am going to add in a little bit of extra greenery just to bring that texture from the edges right the way through to the middle. I don't want to overfill it with too much greenery. The pine, of course, I mentioned in the beginning, is quite often seen in New Year celebrations, so I do want to incorporate a little bit of it. Now, even though I said I was probably going to go with the orange, I am now thinking, because I've changed my mind, that I am going to use a little bit of the yellow. I'm a bit concerned that because it's quite a vibrant, it's a really bright yellow, it might cheapen the design and make it look a bit tacky and not quite so vibrant and rich as I was hoping it to be. So I'll just limit the quantity that I'm going to use, but still use some of the yellow, which is of course represented on the outside there with the dragon. So just a few pieces. I'm thinking one final piece here, and I think I'm going to be quite happy with that. So if we look at it, it's got that semi-crescent shape, it's taller on one side, and if you think about proportions, I've almost left 1/3 of the space within this design blank. So I filled 2/3 including the dragons and including my flowers, and I've given myself about 1/3 of negative space, which is good proportions to work with in floral design. And before I overfill it, and before I ruin the shape that I've created, I'm going to fill in just a few little soft pieces of the pine. I'm still having a bit of difficulty with getting it in this section here. So I've maybe learnt a valid lesson today that cutting the fibre flora is maybe not such a good option. And if I was planning on doing it again, maybe I need to use a sharper knife so that I can cut through in a faster and more professional manner. But I'm loving this pine. You know, we quite often see it at Christmas, but it's going to work so well in this floral design. I've got lots of round shapes with my flowers, round chrysanthemums, round roses, and the addition of this pine is really going to introduce a little bit of a softer texture. That's going to soften the design. It's also going to help fill in any gaps and make sure that all my foam is covered. Now I think I'm really happy with the way that's come together, but before I check it, let's look at finishing off the back of the design nice and neatly. Now I have some chrysanthemums that I didn't use, so we can reuse these at the back to help cover the floral foam. These need to stay really low so that I'm not interfering with that shape that I've created. You could either use these in another arrangement, you could put them in a little bed vase. They work quite well here at the back just to cover the foam. And then I'm going to use the final few pieces of the pine there at the back to make sure that all of that fibre flora is covered. So if I evaluate what I've done today, my decision to cut the foam probably wasn't the best. And I think if I was going to use this on a regular basis, I would definitely cover it with that cling film. It's a compostable cling film. It's one that doesn't contain any plastic, and that would help support and hold that foam together. And if I was doing this arrangement again for a professional situation, if I was sending it to somebody as a gift, or I was maybe using it as a flower festival, or to represent Chinese New Year for any type of festival, then I would definitely make sure my base was covered and it was much more neatly presented. So that's all of the back of my design covered. If you were doing this as a table centre, you would make it equal so that you had the same visual weight on front to back. But I'm really pleased by how that's turned out. Before I photograph it, I'm just going to add a little bit of yellow up into this top section there, because if you follow the yellow line, it almost stops when we get here. So an addition of an extra head here is going to work really well. For those of you that are going to be celebrating Chinese or Lunar New Year, Happy New Year to you all. Good luck for the future as you welcome in Year of the Dragon. As always, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell to be told every time I upload a new tutorial. And stick to the end of the video because there are close-up images of all the individual flowers, and you'll be able to see some close-ups of how I've attached the hoop to the wooden base. So thanks for watching. See you very soon.